Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone that's come to look at my prospectus for my dissertation, and we'll get started. My dissertation is going to be about the relationship between sensory processing difficulties and behavior difficulties in children ages 4 through 8. Is it behavior or is it sensory? It is estimated up to 15% of children are labeled with emotional and behavioral disorders exhibiting problem behaviors that interfere with learning, relationships, and participation in daily activities. And many of these children have received multiple diagnoses, such as autism, ADHD, and ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder. So some of these children are simply labeled as bad and left to fall through the cracks. Is it behavior, or could it be the response to sensory stimuli that presents itself as undesired or inappropriate behavior? Will addressing children's sensory needs decrease the problematic behavior, and are children just being diagnosed with behavior disorders when in fact it really is a processing disorder? I want to know, is there a positive relationship between the severity of the sensory deficits and the behaviors exhibited? And these are just some of the questions that I hope that during my research and my study that I'll be able to answer. Research has shown that systematic use of outdated approaches to controlling the behaviors are just not addressing the needs of our students. New research is emerging that supports addressing the sensory needs of a child can significantly reduce the impact of challenging behaviors, and it's widely accepted among clinicians such as OTs and your teachers that sensory issues are present in kids with a variety of different disorders. Jean Ayers, she is the one that discovered or named sensory integration, and it is the process by which we receive information through our senses. We organize this information and then we use it to participate in our everyday activities. Sensory processing disorder, or we'll see SPD, or it was originally called sensory integration dysfunction. It's a neurological disorder in which sensory information that an individual or a person receives results in an abnormal response presenting as behavior difficulties. So I've done a lot of reading, a lot of research, and I have found that there's minimal research on the relationship between behavioral problems and sensory processing difficulties, and it is a field that is in need of further investigation. The impact for clinicians, there's a significant association between sensory processing difficulty and behavioral problems, has important implications for the clinical practice, such as with occupational therapists. Clinicians and parents, we should be aware that many children who present with these problem behaviors may have underlying sensory processing issues. Evaluation of the sensory processing issues should form part of an assessment process, and consultation with an occupational therapist who has completed accredited training in sensory integration practice should be considered. And then we move to treatment. The identification of these sensory processing difficulties in children stands to be beneficial to their treatment. Clinicians and parents and teachers should work towards developing a shared understanding of the child's sensory needs and how they can be accommodated in the classroom. And clinicians, parents, and teachers can work towards developing a shared understanding of the child's sensory needs and how they can be accommodated. The findings of this study, I hope, will have implications for schools. Children with behavior problems disrupt the learning environment of their peers and are a major stressor for teachers. So it's important for teachers to have an understanding of what might underlie some aspects of problem behavior and how they might be able to address these. I'm hoping to educate teachers on how to recognize and manage sensory processing difficulties and prove that it is beneficial. So we get to my methodology. What am I going to do to figure out how to answer my question of, is it behavior or is it sensory processing? If we address the sensory processing difficulties, will the behaviors decrease? So, I'm going to have an approximate size of 80 students between the ages of 4 and 8, apart from the students on the autism spectrum disorder, from pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade classrooms. I feel that using the whole classroom at each grade level will give me the ages I want to focus on. And it is a given that sensory dysfunction affects children on the spectrum, so I'm more interested in students that are not on the spectrum. The measures I'll be using are the sensory processing deficits will be identified through the short sensory profile. The SSP evaluates a child's sensory processing patterns in the context of home, school, and community-based activities. I'll be measuring the behavior difficulties through the iBerg Child Behavior Inventory. It's a parent rating scale that screens for disruptive behavior. It examines the frequency of the behaviors and whether or not the particular behavior is considered a problem. So once I get all this information, my statistical testing will be conducted using the Pearson product moment correlation coefficient, which will measure the correlation between the sensory data and the behavioral data, and will measure how well they relate by showing a linear relationship between the two sets of data. Because correlation research methods are used to assess relationships and patterns of relationships among the variables in a single group of subjects. The Pearson R indicates both the direction and the magnitude of the relationship between the two variables. I believe it will strengthen my argument that sensory plays a direct role in children's behavior. And that is what I'm hoping to do. Does anybody have any questions about my study or any concerns?